Hello all, welcome to Public Safety Committee virtual meeting on Thursday, September 1st, 2022. I'd like to call this meeting to order at 4 o'clock. General business, well, we have meeting minutes for July 7th, but I have a question. We did not have a quorum. I know that there was a question about a quorum, but there was only one council member present. So, I mean, I don't know the official rules. We didn't make any major decisions. We just shared information. So I know legal's on with us. So what are the rules here when we don't have a quorum at one of our committee meetings?
You can adjourn the meeting and just not have it. If you have a meeting, it's, it's not like, I mean, to be 100%, I mean, I guess the actual answer is our committee meetings actually aren't covered by the OPMA because they are strictly advisory. The committee meetings that are set by council, and I should make that clear, we have a lot of committee meetings that are covered by OPMA. Council committee meetings, we don't accept public comment and we don't take action, and it's strictly advisory. They are subject to openness by our city charter. So a little different. So I would just note on the minutes that there was not a quorum of the council members, but this is what happened. More for record keeping as to just what we said. And Sounds then good. If anyone wants to talk about like at the such and such meeting, say we didn't have a quorum, but we went ahead and the group that was there spoke, and this is what we talked about.
All right. I don't think we, I think we can go ahead and publish whatever, just make an amendment, Vanessa, that we did not have an official council quorum for that meeting.
Okay, I'll add that in.
Great. Okay, and we're moving forward. So do I have a motion to accept the minutes as amended, or are there any other suggestions for changes? Quinn, Denise, you weren't there, so.
Yeah, we'd have to abstain from that vote.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, not necessarily. There could be something, there could be a misspelling or some other information you might want to question, and that's okay too. But
I'm good with them going forward, Jennifer, especially with the special note that there was not a quorum.
Okay. All right. Quinn, is that all good with you?
That is all good with me. Yep.
All right, great. So moved. Next, let's move forward to new business department briefings. Chief Wolf, you're on deck first.
We had an email that the police wouldn't be with us tonight. So it's just legal and fire. And we also have Gary kind of standing in for law enforcement, so to speak, on the city attorney's side, at least with some new laws. So.
Okay, we'll be doing that in the legal briefing, right?
Yep.
Fantastic. Sorry about that. I did not see that email. I apologize. Okay, so we're skipping police, and Chief McGanny, are you with us?
I am.
Hi.
How are you?
Oh, I'm great. Thank you. How are you?
Oh, fantastic.
Great.
So,
any new business? Yeah.
Well, got a few things. We've had some promotions of lately. Just quickly, we have a new battalion chief, a new captain, and now a new lieutenant.
Oh, wow.
So, then that will lead to a couple new firefighters here probably next year. But the real things we got to talk about is our medic unit, paramedic units. I've brought that to you, let you guys know what kind of the plan is. My question is, we're getting closer to bring to council the three of them. One of them will be able to purchase in 2023. The other two, we won't even be able to procure until 2024, probably the first quarter. We have typically bought our medic units from Braun Northwest, and we have sole sourced those. So my question is, the three of you, are you okay with sole source? Or would you prefer that we get like on HCA, which is a national bidding company? It costs us about $1,500 to be a part of it's a Houston Galveston cooperative agreement. So.
And you said that you normally sole source it, is that right, Chief?
Yeah, the last three that we did were remounts, and we sole sourced that. So this will be a purchase of two new ones and a remount of the third.
Yeah, as long as the prices seem reasonable. I know that like Eric is like very keen on like vehicles and the year and how much they are. I I need to look at like Kelly Blue Book and all of that stuff. So like, as long as there's no surprises, I'm fine with it, and I'll defer to the other two.
You're not gonna find Kelly Blue Book on a paramedic.
Yeah, I said it and then I thought about it.
It will be the F-450 Ford chassis though, so
Okay, good.
hopefully.
I would like to know, go ahead, Jennifer.
I was just calling on you, Denise.
Oh, okay. I would like to know, Chief, just normally you get a few bids, right? So could you just bring me up to speed? Is it because of the specialization of the vehicle? And also maybe the fact that one of them's a remount again, that you would go with sole source on the whole deal?
Yeah, well, we use Braun because they're the only local ambulance company. They're actually built in Centralia. And that's our whole fleet is Braun. And so we've tried to stay there. I can coordinate with the fire chief from South Kitsap. We were just talking today, and they just got their bid back for their new medic unit, and it was a little bit higher than what we got back. So
Okay, that's great data to know, right?
yeah, so I will get that information from him. I'm just waiting for the quote for the remount to come back. And then I'm hoping to be able to bring it on the study session on the
14th.
14th. Yeah,
14th.
that's my hope, but I've still got to get all the information, but I wanted to make sure at public safety, we are okay bringing it forward that way.
Yeah, and hooray for keeping things local. You know, I think several of us on council believe in that when we can.
Yeah.
You know, and it looks like this is a local, we don't know the bid yet for sure, but you've done some, let's say, informal comparative shopping.
Yeah.
So I
I would-
appreciate it, Chief. Thank
would-
you.
So, wait a minute. You said you wanted to be like potentially be part of this HDA national bidding program. It's 1,200 a year.
We can join it. Yeah, it's a Houston Galveston cooperative agreement that all they do it. So it costs us about $1,500 to join it, to be part of
Okay.
it if we need to. Braun is part of the HCA.
Okay.
Um,
And you have the potential to get units sooner through that
no,
program?
it's not going to change our price, and it's not going to change when the delivery is. It would just be, instead of going
No.
to sole source, which is a little bit more complicated than going out to bid.
Yeah.
So
I think I heard from Chief McGanny that he wasn't steering us in that direction. Is
Correct.
that correct, Chief?
Correct.
Yeah, it wasn't his recommendation.
No. Okay.
Okay,
Right.
okay, yeah.
Yeah. And let me just finish. Sorry, Denise.
Oh, no.
All right. So then there's really there's no benefit to joining. And is it HG or HD?
HC,
HC.
the Houston
Okay. C for
Galveston-
Charlie.
Yes,
Okay. And so the recommendation is just to stay sole sourced. You'll get your Braun units. It's not going to change. When you can acquire it, it's all the same.
correct.
Okay. And you're going to be coming to council meeting on the 14th.
I'm hoping.
Study session. I'm sorry to yes. Okay.
Yes.
We're getting into that budget season, so we definitely need to get in there for you.
Yeah, the
And
one
can
that the one that I bring forward is already in our current budget. I've been carrying that over for
Right.
This is year 3 now.
Exactly, for 2 years.
Or 2
3 years.
Yeah, this is the 3rd year.
Okay.
So, and then the other 2 are already.
The 3rd year.
So
Okay. So it doesn't have any change. That won't really have an effect on our budget then. You're just going to be letting us know that we need to carry over those funds for you and keep them allocated. Okay.
correct.
And then can you repeat, you have a new battalion chief, a new lieutenant, and what was the other?
A new captain, newly
A
promoted.
new captain.
Yeah.
Oh, newly promoted. These are all promotions, right? Like
Correct.
are they all hired within?
Yeah, they were all internal promotions.
Internal promotions. Great. I think that's all the questions I have for you. Thank you.
Okay, I do have one more thing. I'm sure you all either read the
Absolutely.
newspaper or saw the news report from St. Michael's Medical Center. So I've kept the mayor in the loop on this. We as the fire chiefs are not happy with the response we've gotten out of them. We've had, not Bremerton, we've had 3-hour waits. Central Kitsap one day had a 6-hour wait where their paramedic unit was sitting at the hospital. That is unacceptable to us, and we're working with their leadership to come to some resolution, and they're working through that. But just to keep the council up to date that we are working for that, and it's not acceptable because it has a snowball effect on everybody in the county's availability for response. So if one of our paramedic units is sitting up there, or all 3 of our paramedic units are sitting up there, then somebody else has to come into the city and run our calls, our ALS calls for us. And so if Central Kitsap comes in and does that, then that makes them short. And so it has a huge snowball. So we had a good meeting with Chad Melton today, who's the president. And I think we're coming to some resolution. It'll take a little bit of time, but I just wanted to update the council on that.
Thank you for making that meeting. That is completely unacceptable. And I'm curious what you learned from that meeting. Is it a systemic issue with staffing?
It is a staffing issue. I mean, there's a lot of spokes to this tire that they're having. You have long-term facilities, care facilities that they're not able to discharge patients to. There's a nursing shortage out there. They weren't able to keep a lot of their traveling nurses that they had in July. They're starting to come back. And it's just a, healthcare crisis all over, because it's not just nurses. It's, the janitors, the people that clean the rooms, the CNAs, everybody that has to do with it. And when they get backed up and there's no place to put patients, they end up what they call boarding them in the emergency department. So there's 52 beds in our emergency department, and they've had up to 40 people boarded at one time. So that left 12 beds for the emergency department. And the problem is the nursing staff has to take care of the people that they're boarding, right? And so that just is a snowball.
Tell me, what about was it 76 beds that we were supposed to have reallocated from Bremerton? Where are they?
Well, I think that's total beds in the hospital. I'm not sure what their total bed count is. The emergency room is 52.
Okay.
So
I guess there was a certain number of beds that they were reallocated to St. Michael's.
Correct.
From Bremerton. They were reallocated to Silverdale. Okay.
Yeah.
I feel like there's more than 72 beds at that new facility, though. Am I wrong?
No, I think there's over
26.
There's like over 200, I think.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
it's over 200.
But that's
Yeah.
in the hospital itself.
Hospital. I think what they're
Yeah.
talking
Right.
about is the emergency room has that capacity.
Yeah. No,
Did he mention?
I get that. And so my point is, I guess when we had Chad Milton visit before, we asked where those beds were going. And my understanding was that they had not yet been allocated to, and I can go back. I don't have my other book with me. I only have my new book. I guess I thought that those beds had not been created yet, and that had to do with staffing shortage. That's neither here nor there. It's a whole nother issue, but I super appreciate Chief McGanny that you met with the leadership at St. Michael's. And yeah, it is an issue all over the country. So I think COVID really did the number on those on the staff. It was stressful.
Can I ask a question, Jennifer?
Sure.
Okay.
Please.
Did he happen, Chief McGanny, did Chad Melton happen to mention the opening of the urgent care facility in Bremerton, the timing of that, and whether that will alleviate any of the need at Silverdale? You're laughing, Chief.
I am. I'm not personally overly excited about urgent care being in Bremerton, just because I've seen what it has done to our neighbors, and it adds to their call volume, because patients, instead of going to the emergency department, they end up in the urgent care, and then they need to be admitted to the hospital. So now that creates a 911 call, an additional 911 call, because they might not have been within the city. Now they're coming from other parts of the county. So that's one thing. But yes, he did talk about it. That's probably at least a year out. The one thing that he did commit to that they are looking at, because one of the problems with urgent care is typically you get family practice docs or PAs in there that don't have the same experience level, and they tend to put things at the hospital that don't necessarily need to go there. They're going to try to staff it with emergency room physicians. So
Okay.
hopefully that will alleviate some of it. They're not going to be able to admit people. So even if it is a freestanding emergency department, if somebody needs to be admitted, they're going to have to go from here up to Silverdale. And that just depends on how critical they are, whether it's a 911 call or Olympic ambulance transport. And then if they're not available, then it falls back on us, just like Naval Hospital. So.
And this is happening from what the paper said, it's happening around the country, or is it exacerbated here because of this move from Bremerton to Silverdale?
Well, I think it's the reason. I mean, I think there's a lot of reasons that it's being affected. I think they moved into a much larger hospital and didn't have the staff initially to staff it, and then we run into COVID, which then created a whole nother issue. And there's no competition, right? So they're the only ones, and we've talked to our state legislators about that. We just had a meeting with them last week too, and Representative Kilmer. So the fire chiefs are trying to attack it from every angle.
Wonderful to hear. Thank you
But,
for sharing that. That
yeah.
makes me feel, solid that
Yeah.
you're speaking with state and federal administration as
And our
well.
local legislators out here understand they don't want to use the monopoly word, but they have a monopoly and they're the ones that control it, right? They're the ones that can control the beds and how the beds are dealt out. So hopefully we'll be able to see a change. I mean, there's a lot of pressure, and we're on an island and we have one service provider out here in Kitsap County. So it makes it a little bit more difficult. We're not in Pierce County or King County or even Thurston County, to where we have more options to go to. Our option is to head south to Gig Harbor. And then when we start going to Gig Harbor, that just creates a problem with Gig Harbor. And then if we go to Tacoma, then all those fire departments there. So, I mean, yeah, they have more resources in Tacoma and Pierce County, but you start taking patients from Kitsap County and adding that to it, it creates a bigger problem. So
It's a complicated issue.
it is. We actually threw out the suggestion, and Representative Kilmer was going to look at it about doing a partnership with maybe another company at Naval Hospital. He doesn't think it will fly.
Oh,
He's going to look into it.
He was honest with you instead of politicking you.
Yeah. Oh no. Representative Kilmer is.
so he's suggesting that creatively, maybe they could use the physical hospital at Naval Hospital and serve general population.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Good for Derek.
That would be that would be really creative. But I mean,
That's kind of a boom
Yeah.
for the Navy, though.
Yeah. Well, and they're having issues with their L&D up there, just because they're not seeing enough patients, and their doctors are having to come to Silverdale. So just to practice, because they're not delivering that many babies out there, and that is a skill that you don't want to lose. So
Thank you,
we'll
Chief.
see. Yeah, we'll see where things go.
Thank you. Is there anything else on this issue from any other council members? Okay. Chief McGanny, anything else for updates from fire?
Nope, I think that's enough.
Thank you. Yeah, that was a good discussion though, wasn't it? Thank you very much for that. And next up is legal. We have City Attorney Fennell.
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 Like that
Sorry,
again.
I said it out loud and then I knew I was saying it wrong. And so
Okay.
I fixed it. So I apologize. And City Prosecutor Hersey. Not Hershey.
Right.
Nailed
Not
it.
Hershey.
Nobody ever does that, do they?
It's never happened.
Never happened. All right.
Yeah. So
You're up.
I am going to, do you want us to get into the meat, or is this just the overview at this point? I don't have a department report because we have the
It looks
three-
like you've got some code updates, right? Four
Right.
of them.
Yeah,
So why don't
I'll
we
let
just-
Gary get right into those.
Let's just get right into it. Yeah, we've got the
Sure.
BMC 9A.32.070 domestic violence state statutes adopted by reference, update code to reflect legislative changes from E2SHB 1901.
Yes. Hi, everyone. So I'm Gary. I think I met most of you all by Zoom before. So what we're recommending today is to amend the code to reflect some recent legislative changes and also to adopt some RCWs that had not previously been adopted in the code. The benefit of doing this is it allows us to prosecute these types of crimes in Bremerton Municipal Court. Because they're not currently adopted doesn't mean that they're not crimes. It just means that we would have the option to prosecute in Bremerton instead of having to send these types of cases over to district court. The first two are very similar. They basically, the long story short is as of July 1st, 2022, the Washington State Legislature passed the engrossed substitute House Bill 1901. What this was essentially overhauling everything related to civil protection orders. Civil protection orders are not anymore done in municipal court. They're only done in superior and district court. This can range from everything from domestic violence protection orders to vulnerable adult protection orders, extreme risk protection orders, anti-harassment orders. Essentially, any kind of civil protection order is going to be done through superior and district now moving forward. But how this affects municipal court and my job and Bremerton Police's job is that when you have violations of those orders, they do trigger criminal penalties. So what in the past, Bremerton has always prosecuted these. This isn't anything new. This is just to reflect the changes from that legislation. Among other things, they repealed a bunch of chapters and essentially moved everything into a new chapter. It's nothing that exciting so much as needing to amend our code to make sure we're not citing to repealed statutes and we're adopting this brand new chapter so we can continue to prosecute these very serious crimes, which are primarily domestic violence protection order violations, but we also see anti-harassment order violations commonly. So that's our recommendation to make that change. I guess I should ask, do we have any questions, or I can dive through the other two as well?
So, I don't have any questions. I'd love for you. I mean, this is a code update. We're not doing anything new. We're just citing. We're just we're adapting it to go along with state legislative changes. Okay. I don't have any questions. Other council members, do you, or would you like me to continue?
Yeah, sorry, I have my hand
sorry,
raised. I'm not
Glenn.
sure if you can see me.
Oh, I'm
Um,
sorry.
Oh, no, no worries. Just speaking up so if you can't hear. So
Thank you.
I'm an attorney, but I don't litigate. And it's been a while since I've been in law school. But I'm confused. So do we have a municipal court or a district court? Because when
Municipal.
Judge Flood's salary recommendation came up, I was asking why we were using a district court number for a municipal court. And I was told that Bremerton Court is a district court. So can you kind of clarify? Because
Yeah,
that is
so-
different.
Yeah.
I can handle, I mean,
Oh, yeah,
for
go
that
ahead.
part of the discussion, they're both courts of limited jurisdiction.
Right.
However, there are some distinctions, particularly if you look at the provisions in the Constitution that create courts. So municipal courts are unique in that they're created by the municipality, but once they spring into being, they become this like third branch of government that is then under the purview of the Supreme Court. They don't have the same type, like you can't file like a civil lawsuit in a municipal court like you can a district court.
But
And
you
so
can
that
prosecute like state offenses.
you can prosecute misdemeanors and gross misdemeanors. And that became the kind of the issue of why district courts and superior courts are now the only places you can get protection orders. Because the legislature looked at that and decided that it was more in line with certain opinions on the constitutionality of municipal courts issuing those, that they weren't able to have civil proceedings of any type except infractions.
Gotcha.
And misdemeanor and gross misdemeanor prosecutions, criminal prosecutions. So that's the difference. They're all like municipal and district courts are all under the courts of limited jurisdiction. And so sometimes district courts are used as like comparable for like salaries and stuff.
Gotcha.
But they are
Okay.
different because, like a district court judge, they'll preside over a civil jury trial, right? That's never
Right.
going to happen down in municipal court.
Right. That was my question. I can't remember who the presenter was about the salary, but I was like, I thought this was a municipal court, not a district.
It is.
Court. Why are we using the district court? And she's like, I don't know where you got that information. I was like, sorry, I'm not a litigator. Maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, no, it's a municipal court. And so we
Okay.
have to, there's a case out there. Basically, if we don't adopt an RCW as a part of our municipal code, we can't file a charge in our municipal
Right.
court because our complaints reference BMC. They don't
Right.
reference
The state, yeah.
state law. So district court, and that's what Gary was saying. It's not that these things are becoming criminal now. They are.
Right.
All of these things are illegal in Bremerton. But right now, if we got a referral for violating an anti-harassment order, Gary, you got to send those to district court right now. And so the prosecutors
Gotcha.
over there handle them
Okay.
and stuff. But if we just didn't do this, it could become an
It
issue
would, have to go to district or superior. Okay, so
Right.
when I'm talking about this, and it's a very, and I'm sorry for derailing, but it is a municipal court. District court is separate. We are just incorporating this into the code so that we may prosecute. Awesome.
Right. And
Okay.
and we really need to, because and this is they certainly don't send us a bill. But if Bellingham once tried to basically save some money, someone had the idea, let's repeal our entire criminal code and we'll just send everything over to those handy dandy free prosecutors at the county, right? And we won't have to spend as much money. And of course, the county was upset about that because they weren't prepared for it and stuff. And I think the AG issued an opinion that said that you can't do that. So we need to especially something that we're going to be charging frequently. We need to adopt it and prosecute it locally, just
Cool.
to keep kind of, things going smooth between the two jurisdictions, because we do have concurrent jurisdiction.
Thanks for that lesson. I thought I was going crazy that last time, but
Nope, you're
this
fine.
makes sense. Okay.
You got
awesome.
it.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Quinn. Sorry, I didn't see. I've got my participant box up now so I can see when somebody's hand is raised. I appreciate you letting me know. Denise, do you have any questions or you want to plug forward?
Let's plug forward.
All
Go
right.
team.
The next one, bullet point number 3, is not currently in the code. This is a brand new RCW that I think went into effect just like June or July of this past year. It was passed by the legislature.
Can
sorry.
I pause you for a second? Are you talking about BMC 9A.32.080 order for protection restraining order, or you looped that in? You looped 1 and 2 together?
I looped those together, and sorry, so 1 and 2 are
Okay.
very similar because they
Okay.
were affected by that same legislation.
1901. Got it.
One basically adopts the relevant state statutes that define and outline addressing domestic violence in a variety of forms, from protection orders to
Thank you.
law enforcement obligations, and 2 references and adopts the relevant orders, RCWs
Perfect.
for
And
protection.
so now
orders.
we're on BMC 9A.24 firearms and dangerous weapons, adoption of RCW 9.41.305 open carry weapons prohibited on state capitol grounds and municipal buildings. Quinn, this one is for you.
Yes.
All right. Thank you, Mr.
So-
Herx.
Of course. So this one is
Okay.
a new RCW passed by the legislature, went into effect this past year. Essentially, we had been contacted by risk management asking if this had been adopted, and they said no, but it's not probably a bad idea to have this adopted because they were notified of the new change in the law. Essentially, what this does is it makes it unlawful for any person to knowingly openly carry a firearm or other weapon while knowingly being in certain locations. Most relevant here to Bremerton would be city, town, county, or other municipality buildings used in the connection with meetings of the governing body. Any in the location where they're going to be holding public meetings or hearings for municipalities. or cities, towns, counties. Essentially what this does, if the city were to adopt this and if the city were to put up signs in locations where there are public meetings, it would make this a misdemeanor to bring in a firearm, and then a gross misdemeanor if they've been previously convicted of that same charge, with the exception that for people who lawfully have concealed pistol licenses.
Great. Does anybody have any questions about this one?
Yeah, I do. So since the city owns the conference center, would that be a location in which signage would be found?
That is a really good question. It depends on if the building is used in connection with meetings that the governing body uses. So there would have to be a sign if the conference center was somewhere where there were meetings of that nature, that could be a possible location. I think most likely it'd probably be applying to the Norm Dix building once council is back in person, if should that happen
Yeah,
anytime soon,
yeah.
which is above my pay grade. But that's this RCW, it outlines a number of locations that wouldn't apply here because most of them are for state capitol grounds in Olympia.
Right.
But for our purposes, really any place where meetings are held and the person is put on notice. The idea would be that the city would then be posting signs saying this is a prohibited area where you can't just bring in a gun to a county, city, government meeting, with the idea of hopefully making people feel a little safer.
So interesting. We usually, like, we've got a community meeting coming up. It's going to be at the Sheridan Community Center. So obviously a city operated community center at which public meetings are sometimes or district meetings are sometimes held. Is that an area where there'd be a posted sign? I get the Norm Dix, I really do.
Yeah.
And I'm all for gun safety as well. So I say put the signs up everywhere. I'm from California. But I know what that would do to our community. And the reason I asked this, Quinn, is because I think what triggered some of your concern, our concern, when you spoke so passionately about it, was around the conference center gun show. And I think there had been a shooting and you had raised the issue. And so I'm bringing it back to that conference center and just, wondering, because it's a city-owned property, just like a community center. I don't think we'd have city council meetings there, Kylie, but I mean, what are your thoughts around this?
So my thought would be that maybe, we've got a little bit of time before the study session. We've got 2 weeks, right? Then maybe Gary and I dig in and maybe create what we think would be a list for the study session of what buildings would apply. Because I know that MRSC did an article on the applicability, and it could, some of it might even be reaching out, like we own the conference center park, building, but transit, they're one of our tenants, right? And do they have their meetings there? And are those public meetings and that kind of thing? And so do they, where are they on this? And Gary, correct me if I'm wrong here, but this is just related to open carry, correct?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It's my understanding that this was meant to be a law that would basically like address some concerns about that being used as a method of intimidation at a public meeting.
Definitely. I see that.
And so there are some really specific definitions and that get adopted with the statute. And Gary and I can spend some time drilling into those to see what specific buildings would apply in our jurisdiction, and maybe even, reaching out to some of our partners too, because I know that there was some issues about like, I know the MRC article addressed situations where like maybe the public entity is in part of the space and not all of the space? Like, does it prohibit it everywhere, or is it just whenever it's on, when the meeting's going on, that kind of thing? And so we can drill into that to kind of see how it's going to, how it would look.
Okay, okay, okay.
But I know that like the language for the signs is in the statute, and it's clear you posted on the front of the building. It's similar to like what you see and when you go into like a courthouse.
Yeah, yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think it's just meant to kind of take that type of thing that people are used to, you know, that you can't take weapons into the courthouse, right? And then apply it to public meetings, and but only to open carry. So.
Okay, okay.
So Gary, why don't we make a note of that, and we can work on
Yeah.
that, get a list
Yeah, for
together.
sure. And yeah, this is brand new. I mean, this is something that was just passed, so it hasn't been litigated or battle tested yet in that sense. So, but we can do some more digging and provide some more.
Well, and I can find that MSRC.
Right. Yeah. And it's, some of it's going to be figuring out, like, obviously the Northern Dix is obvious one, but are there other places, like you said, the conference center, you know, does Gold Mountain count, right? Because we
Right.
do have the
Yeah.
retreat out there, because, and so that is a council meeting that's often held out there. And is it, so like under the OPMA, there are some provisions that you can't be like a la carte for, like, I don't know how else to say it. Like, once you like solicit public comment, then that group is then a committee subject to the OPMA. And it could be something like that. Like, once a building is host a public meeting, does it become one of these places like forever, or is it, you know, what is that? So
Yeah.
we'll have to drill into that a little bit. And it might end up being too, is what we're most comfortable with on prosecution, right? So if some portions of it seem like it might be subject to a challenge, maybe those are not the ones that we want to pursue, and we'll, you know, stick to the ones that have a more sound legal basis. So Gary and I can figure out which buildings it's going to apply to and make some recommendations.
Great, love the recommendations.
Thank you. I had a little bit of technical issues. Just a housekeeping. Did somebody else become the host when I left? I'm curious how
Quinn.
that worked. Great.
Yeah, we're co-hosts, so whenever that happens, the meeting doesn't end.
Perfect. And you have the agenda right in front of you, huh?
I
You're
do.
scrambling to find it. Oh, good. I'm glad. Thank you. Thank you, co-chair. Well, vice chair, but thank you. And so I think just a synopsis of what I missed, basically legal is going to do research on which meetings this new adoption of open carry actually applies to, whether it actually applies to, you know, informal but official council, you know, group meetings, or whether it's just OPMA meetings. Is that correct?
Yep. Yeah, Carly and I will look into that.
Thank you. Okay. Quinn, did you have any questions about this particular item?
Nope. I'm interested to see what the case law says about it. And it'll be interesting to see what kind of lawsuits come out of it.
Right. Thank you. I don't have any questions. I just wanted that clarification. Okay. Next on the list is number 4, C4, BMC 9A.44, public disturbances, adoption of RCW 9A.50.020, interference with healthcare facility, and RCW 9A.50.030, penalty. Let's hear it.
All right, so this is the last one on our list of recommended adoptions. This is an older RCW actually that just hasn't been adopted. And to be honest, I have not seen any referrals for this. That's not to say that this does not happen in Bremerton. But with some of the latest Supreme Court legislation or rulings rather, and things that have happened across the country, it was recommended that we consider adopting this. It's called interference with healthcare facility. Essentially what this is, it makes it unlawful for a person to willfully or recklessly interfere with access to a healthcare facility, along with willfully or recklessly disrupting normal functioning of these facilities, basically obstructing or impeding the passageway of people trying to come and go from healthcare facilities, making unreasonable noise that disrupts with the facility, trespassing, calling the facility repeatedly to basically harass them, or of course threatening to inflict injury on anyone who comes into contact with that facility, owners, patients, employees, people similar to that. This is an interesting RCW in that it does have mandatory minimum penalties, and they actually escalate with the more times someone might do this over and over again, which is not something you often see in courts of limited jurisdiction. Mandatory minimum penalties, there's really only a handful of crimes that I can think of that applies to, but this is loud and clear from the legislature. The idea is that, when people are in such a vulnerable position and are seeking necessary health care, whether it be anything, but obviously most common, you're going to see protests to abortion facilities, that people who work there and are going there are protected, and there's law enforcement has the ample tools to respond to these situations should lawful protests ever escalate to the point where it's infringing on people's need to get health care. This is something that I think would be a good RCW to adopt into the code. And one of the two RCWs defines what makes it a crime, and the other lays out the different penalties.
Thank you. Do any other council members have any questions about this item?
I do have a question, Gary. When there's these updates or additions, to our codes, do you look at everything that comes through the state, and then if you think that it's going to be appropriate for Bremerton, you bring it, to us, and is that how it goes? I'm wondering. I am incredibly supportive of this, and am a little surprised that it wasn't already on the books, right? But I think it's great. I just would like to know a little bit more about, did somebody say, hey, after that decision at the Supreme Court, let's look for any opportunity, to protect women. I would love it if somebody had said that. So if like the mayor one day, or Kylie or somebody else said, hey, after this decision, let's do something. Just wondering how that process happens.
That's a great question. I think this one had been on the books, I think, since like 1993. And of course, again, just because Bremerton hadn't adopted it, local law enforcement could have arrested and taken them to and referred to district court. But here, the benefit is having the ability to prosecute here if we need to. Hopefully, we don't need to. But to answer your question, we do keep updated on legislative updates. There's plenty of RCWs that are not adopted, and there's so many crimes in the RCWs, you can't really count them. But when we are alerted to ones that are potentially relevant and keeping track of legislative updates and thinking this is one we should be adopting, I make a habit of running it up the chain, seeing what Kylie thinks, and seeing, and if given the blessing, coming to you. I think in this case, we had received a letter from a nonprofit notifying us legal voice of this RCW and recommending that more cities adopt it, because while it's always been an available tool for district court, municipal courts haven't generally prosecuted them.
That's great to know. And I would encourage you to let that organization know that their letter triggered that. Maybe once we get this all through. I've worked for advocacy organizations, and you're just sending stuff out there hoping that something's going to stick. And thank you for this, Gary. And on behalf of many here locally, I remember I first met Emily Randall at a Planned Parenthood. She was working for Planned Parenthood, and we were at the Planned Parenthood on Rydell. And there were a lot of people out there that didn't want us to be there. So thank you for this, and thank you for the explanation too.
Sure.
Quinn, do you have anything else, anything to add or any? Oh yes, Quinn has his hand up. You're next.
I don't want to step on Kylie. Kylie, it looked like you were also going to say something.
No, I was just going to say that. So after the Supreme Court decision, I think is when I received the letter, and I looked and we didn't have it adopted. And I talked to Gary. We were already in the works for getting the code update for the protection orders. And so I guess when you're talking about like, how did these things happen? That one advocacy group alerted us to the need to look into that. My guess is it was that, get that, I mean, in 1993, I can say Gary and I were probably in like junior high and grade school, right? So
Yeah.
so we didn't catch this one. It made sense at this time to go ahead and get it adopted. And then, so Melissa Fulmer, our risk manager, got an alert about the legislation on open carry, because she was looking into what we need to do for signage and that kind of thing. So that put that one into the pipeline for adopting. So other places are WAPA, the Washington Association of Prosecuting Attorneys. WSAMA is the one for municipal attorneys. And then we have, just reading MRSC, that kind of
This
thing.
just makes my heart feel so warm and fuzzy, to come from that work and now be working within a municipality that it's just great. Thank you.
Right. And so I was planning to let her know. Sorry.
No, it's okay. I think it was Quinn's turn to ask questions. So I wanted to defer to him because I think I just want, were you were asking the questions, right?
Yeah. It wasn't even a question. It was just, I want to like echo what Denise is saying. I also think that it's really important with the post, I don't even remember the case name, just like the anti-Roe v. Wade turnover, that as a municipality, we do this as a symbolic gesture as well. And I think it would be good to get like a press release on it as well, to just show that we are city council, city government stands with women's rights to access healthcare without harassment. Obviously they have First Amendment rights, but that does not, veer into harassment or any sort of conduct that would cause them not to be able to access that healthcare. So I just appreciate that you guys flag this and that it's actually going to get out there, because I think it's important, especially right now, that our constituents know that we are with them.
Thank you. So apologies, Denise, for cutting you off. I think I made the same mistake during this meeting too. I just want to make sure that when somebody has their turn, that they have their time to speak. So I apologize.
Sure, that's what makes you such a good chairperson, Jennifer.
Oh, I'm bringing the hammer to this meeting. Jeez. No, I apologize if I was rude. I just wanted to make sure Quinn got his time in too. And so just to kind of like a recap of all of this. So some of these are the first three really are just updating, like well, they're all updated to RCWs, but the only one that is not kind of like required is number 4, right? The other ones are, am I understanding this right as far as adoption? Because you need to be able to cite the correct codes when you're doing the prosecuting or citing for the number 1 and number 2. You need to have the correct codes. Number 3 is, it's already, it's already a law at the state level. So we need to have it updated because it does say specifically municipal buildings. And then number 4 is something that legal felt was very relevant, right? And should be adopted. Am I correct in making that analysis?
In theory, we could not adopt any of them and just not prosecute that stuff locally.
Just let it go to, okay.
District court. The one with municipal buildings is a little bit, we do have to take some action because obviously the county's not going to come post signs on our buildings. Right. So we're going to have to do that one.
Number 1 and number 2, we're already doing anyway. Number 3 is new legislation that specifically cites municipal buildings. And then number 4 is kind of new to us and something that
New
we do.
to us,
It's
yeah.
new practice for us at the municipal level.
Right.
You guys
That's
are the
right.
best. I mean, seriously, this is a lot of work. So I like, you can't just pick all the RCWs and adopt them. That would really overwhelm the system, right? And so I just wanted to kind of like, obviously, Gary, if you're bringing these to us, you're okay with any extra workload this is going to bring to you. I mean, right?
Oh, yeah, yeah. And I mean,
Yeah.
I should say, I think, I hope that we never see any of these cases for just,
Mhm.
you know, just as a citizen. But it's good to have them as an option in case it does happen. But I do want to stress 1 and 2, although we currently prosecute them, at least with respect to number 2, we can't prosecute them until we adopt it because what we have in the code cites to a repealed statute. So and we get
Got
a ton of those cases. So
So absolutely.
So one thing I thought of as we were talking, and I apologize, is that as a matter of like form, we might split this into different ordinances. There is a requirement that ordinances really only address like one topic. I kind of initially, when I was reviewing this, seeing it as, oh, they're all adoptions of RCWs, but these are all really discrete issues, right? And so it might make more sense for us to have 3 ordinances. I think that the protection order ones can be lumped into one. And then have an ordinance on the open carry in municipal buildings, and then have an ordinance on interference with healthcare. And so I'm just saying, like, I'm going to look at that and probably split those apart. So when we see it come for a study session, it'll probably look like 3 items.
that makes sense.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you. And so number 4, I really do like the idea of having a press release on it. Mainly because, I mean, we think we live in a super liberal area, but there's situations all the time that happen all over the country, even in purple areas or whatever you want to call them, where professionals are harassed and intimidated. And so I do love the idea of a press release. Once we have the language and the ordinance hammered out. And I just wanted for clarification on this ordinance related to public disturbances, interference with healthcare facilities. This really is something that can only be applied to individuals and not organizations and groups, like right? You know what I mean? Like if there's a group of people, you know, an organization that's anti-healthcare, then it's again, we can't, you know, cite them. It has to be the individuals that come out.
Exactly. It would be narrowing down the person or persons, and they would be charged individually in their respective cases.
Okay, thank you. And I think that's all the questions I have for these. I appreciate you briefing us on this and being proactive with it. It's a lot of work. So thank you very much for getting us all up to code and being progressive and bringing new stuff up that would be good for our city to help protect its citizens. Kylie, you have your hand up.
I do. I just wanted to bring up, I guess, somewhat of a counterpoint to the press release. And this is just a concern I have about, and maybe it's because I'm a cynic, that we've had things in the past where it actually brings out protesters
Okay.
to try to test things. And it might draw attention to the fact like, oh, I think that law is unconstitutional. And we've actually had protests at that particular look at Rydell. It's interesting because depending if they're walking back and forth across the street, they're sitting there crossing the border. I don't know if you remember the Free the Nipple protest. That's what they did. Anyway, and so
I went to that. Just kidding.
Did you?
No.
The city took no action. I don't know if the county did or not. But regardless, what I'm saying is that sometimes there are groups that like, you know, to like to push the limits on this, and it might. I think it has been pretty quiet up there. I have not heard of anything, but I'm just putting that out there. I don't know.
I
I
think
drive
that's a
by
good
there
point.
today. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Sorry,
Quinn.
sorry. Yeah, I agree. I actually, after I said it, I was like, oh, that might bring out the crazies. So yeah, I want them to feel supported, but maybe we support them by when we actually have to do a test case, like actually prosecuting and then going from there. So I will retract that. I think that's smart.
Thank you.
Or
for that
asking maybe
point.
Planned Parenthood what they would like, right? Maybe we could-
Exactly. Exactly. That would be the right way to do it, is ask the affected parties what they want. So
So,
Denise,
Yeah, that was I think instead of a press release, possibly a letter to the head of Planned Parenthood here and informing them. Of course,
Yeah.
they could put a press release out, but you know, that's one of those organizations that, you know, do a hell of a lot of advocacy as well as direct service. And I just think it would really make their day, their week, their year if they knew that the city of Bremerton was doing this. So maybe something like that instead of a press release.
I'm gonna just kind of flow with that and then just go with consensus on that. And I love the idea then, instead of connecting with Planned Parenthood, once we do have this all good to go and passed by council. It
We're
does
looking
have
at
the
the 14th.
potential at the 14th. It does have the potential to make press. So maybe we should have something ready just in case, because I could see somebody catching hold of this and making it's okay. That's what the, media is there for, to bring us relevant information, I guess. So, I think that's it. Are there any other comments or questions related to legal's briefing and or these code updates and ordinances that are going to be getting worded and worked out for us? Great. We can move on to council member reports. I'm going to defer first to Vice Chair Dennehy. Do you have any words or reports today?
No, I do not. And I didn't see it on the agenda, so no, but no report.
Okay. Denise.
No real report. Great meeting. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. I have no report. Next on the agenda is the fireworks ordinance, which is a standing agenda item for now. And so and I think that I've individually talked to you about this, the fireworks ordinance and why it's on as a standing agenda item. I don't have any updates for you today that's different from last week. Basically, I'll just kind of recap what I shared last week, which is that I'm interested in a public information collaboration with other stakeholders in the community as we get closer to July 4th. And one of the comments that Chief Wolf had was it would be great to have like a good neighbor kind of a rollout. I think Chief McGanny wanted to make sure that let me go back in my notes, but Chief McGanny wanted to also make sure that we didn't overburden the fire department, that people were aware of what the fire department's limits are. Chief McGanny, are you there? Am I recapping kind of your concern about a good neighbor?
Yes, I am. And that goes for, making sure that our citizens understand the capabilities of probably both fire and police, because the fire department, we don't have the police powers. So we're really, would put our people in a bad spot trying to deal with, shutting down fireworks. But just like police, we're busy, and they would probably be someplace in line.
Okay.